is Minnesota buying out the two players that they signed together, however many years ago, for outrageous sums of money. I think, what was this, 8 years ago they signed these guys? Like 12 million,
9 years to 9 to 13-year contracts. That's right, because they have 4 left.
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? When you make a buyout like this, where the contracts, had money up front, we're looking at. I have it here. This is just dead cap. So in reality, they would have had to spend, I don't know what their contracts were together. Was it like $15 million a season when you combine them? Something a little more than that?
Yeah, more. Yeah.
Either way, they are now paying out over the next 8 seasons over $50 million to the two of them in just dead money. They're getting nothing out of it. Now, Parise kind of like, I didn't surprise me a ton, but Suter's still a solid defenseman, and 4 years left on a contract. You could have waited till next year and cut that length of the buyout in half, but I have the numbers here. So next year, this coming season, it clears up about $10 million in space for them, right? They're going to pay $4.7 million in dead salary or so. Now, so great, $10 million more to play with going into the season, but now you also lose one of your top defensemen and, a middling forward at least.
Yeah. Old guy.
But then for the 3 years after that, 2022, 2023, $12.7 million in dead cap. 23, 24, $14.74 million. 24, 25, also $14.74 million. So that is 3 years in which probably 2 of those might still have a flat cap on them, or at least one of them, where they are going to be paying bit over $14 million to nobody on their roster, basically cutting their salary cap down to about 67, 68 million bucks. And then after that, the 4 years after that, they're going to be paying about 1 2/3 of a million for each of the next 4 years. So the Wild are done, right? Like, how can you, like, they were finally just starting to turn over a new leaf with, Kaprizov, and they were looking like they actually could start to compete and start to have a decent roster put together here and make the playoffs. And then we look at it and it's like, okay, well, maybe this year they can do something. They just freed up $10 million, but they do have to sign Kaprizov. But then the 3 years after that, they're going to have to just rebuild. Like they have no money. Like, what are they going to do?
It's ridiculous. And I actually was impressed by Minnesota in the regular season, and especially in the playoffs. I thought they could have beat Vegas, and then you look at Kaprizov, you look at Fiala, you look at the fact that these guys, there's potential there. And then, they're not going to be able to do anything. For $15 in whatever, that's almost 20%. $15, $15 million. That's almost 20% in dead cap space. 20%.
It is.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's literally 18.5% of their salary cap is tied up to players that aren't on their roster. And then it comes out that Kirill Kaprizov was offered, I think, 8 years at 8 or 9 per. So he was offered by the Wild basically a $64 million contract.
Okay.
He said no. He said no to that much guaranteed money because he thinks he's going to be a $10 or $11 million player. What that also says to me is, do you really want to hitch your wagon to this team that literally for the 8 years of your contract that you're signing, they will still be paying Zach Parise and Ryan Suter?
Wow.
At that point, like it just doesn't work. like if I'm Kaprizov, I'm thinking, hey, this team's decent and we're going to have some money to play with this year. But then after that, they have $0 for the next 3 years. I have no chance of winning. And he's he can just leave at that point. And why wouldn't you?
That's so crazy. Imagine if he does. Imagine if he did accept that $8 million. So then for, in 3 years from now, that means 23 million of the 82 million salary cap would have been in one player that's playing for them.
Yeah. And a player who's played one NHL season.
So, Parker, help me and help the listeners and the viewers figure this out. Why did Bill Guerin do such a move? Is it because he had to he thought he could maximize it now?
It had to be, right, because it cleared up over $10 million for this year.
Yeah.
But were you looking at the Wild this year and thinking, oh, they're close, like they're on the edge of competing? No, they're a bubble team. That would be like the Canucks going into this offseason and saying, all right, we need to trade our first to get rid of this Eriksson contract, get out of these Beagle and Roussel contracts because we're going to bring in a couple more pieces and we're going to go all in this year. It would be a ridiculous move. It wouldn't make any sense. This whole move doesn't make any sense. Like I saw it like all over Twitter is people trying to figure it out. Like it's like Charlie from It's Always Sunny with like the dart or the cork board with all the strings going everywhere. Like, how do these numbers work? They just don't. It doesn't make any sense. But I guess Minnesota they have to just be starting a full on rebuild at this point because they're not going to have any money to bring anyone in to compete for the next 4 years.
Wow. So are you going to Bill Guerin and saying, don't protect me this Saturday? I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to maybe I want to go to Seattle and be on a team that has some people that make reasonable contracts. I mean, unless they get Braden Holtby, then who knows what they're doing either. But yeah, no, it's a crazy move. It doesn't make any sense to me. And they are literally going to be paying $50 million. I think it was like I added all the numbers. It's like $54 million to two people who aren't going to play for them over the next 8 years.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely crazy.